There are several ways of writing the conclusion of a hypothesis test. There are 4 ways to write the conclusion based on whether the claim contained equality and whether the results of rejecting or failing to reject. So it depends on 2 things. First of all, whether the claim contained equality, and the second is whether the results of rejecting or failing to reject the null hypothesis. So you have to look at both those things. Whether the claim contained equality, or whether you rejected or failed to reject the null hypothesis. First, decide whether the claim contained equality. H sub 0, which is less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, or equal to. Remember, we talked about writing the claim arrow in the beginning or setup of the sentence, or whether the claim did not contain equality, HA, which includes the less than, greater than, or not equal to symbols. Second, determine whether the null hypothesis was rejected or failed to reject. So remember, if the claim is with the H sub O, that is the less than or equal to, greater than equal to, or equal to. This has equality. Then no equality is with the claim going to H sub A, which is the less than, greater than, or not equal to symbols. The null hypothesis is rejected. Remember, you either reject the null hypothesis if, and we talked about the p-value method, the p-value is less than or equal to the significance level, and you fail to reject the null hypothesis, H sub 0, if the p-value is greater than the significance level. So be sure to always state the original claim in the concluding sentence at the significance level. So there are two forms of writing this. So the first one, the sentence says, does the claim contain the condition of equality? Yes, it contains the less than or equal to, greater than or equal to sign. So then we go to the right and we ask ourselves, do we reject the null hypothesis? If we reject the null hypothesis, it comes option A here. So I like to label these A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So the sample does provide sufficient evidence to warrant rejection or reject the claim that. And then this is where you would write the original claim, and the at part would be the significance level. Next, you could say, does the claim contain equality? You could say yes again, and instead of rejecting the null hypothesis, you could say no, you failed to reject the null hypothesis. This statement would be the sample data does not provide sufficient evidence to reject the claim that, and again you would state what the claim is. Okay, so if it contains equality, you're going to have rejection. Okay, you're going to reject the claim. And whether it has enough evidence, it would be does support, okay, or does provide sufficient evidence, or it does not provide sufficient evidence. Now, if the claim, does the claim contain equality? If it's no, remember, if it's yes, this would be the claim went to HO. If it's no, the claim was HA. Then do we reject it? If we rejected it, yes, the sample data does provide sufficient evidence to support the claim. Now again, going back, if the original claim did not contain equality, so the claim was with HA, and we did not reject it, then we could say the sample data does not provide sufficient evidence to support the claim. So you just got to follow the little flow chart here. Or you can look at it in a table form. If the claim here, if the claim is HO, remember that means it contains equality. And equality means there's equality in less than or equal to that has equal to in it, greater than or equal to that has equal to in it, and obviously the equal to sign. Or does not contain equality, Okay, so the does not contain equality is with the HA. That's why it has a less than, greater than, or not equal to symbol. Then we have either reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis, and we talked about the p-value. So you can say there is sufficient evidence to reject the claim, and then write your claim out. You can say there is sufficient evidence to support the claim, and so there is sufficient evidence, and notice the reject or support the claim. Or you can say there is not enough evidence. There's not sufficient evidence. Enough, sufficient, they're really basically the same thing. And either to reject or support, whether you fail to reject the claim, fail to reject the null hypothesis. So these two charts are the same. Instead of does, it says is. It's just a kind of verbiage tense. Warrant rejection is rejection and support is support. So it's, again, just a verbiage. Just make sure you're stating the claim of the scenario in the problem.